Good evening, everybody. I thought I might start today by just giving you a little bit of background on how I actually arrived at this place. Like many of you, I'm sure you have rich backgrounds, perhaps in corporate America, entrepreneurial America. And I did stints in both. I spent roughly 40 years in corporate America and another 12 in entrepreneurial America. And when I thought I was going to throw in the towel and declare retirement, I started volunteering. And I was volunteering at Vivillon, which I'm sure many of you know. And Vivillon has a tech tutoring program. I opted for that versus classroom instruction because I do enjoy working one-on-one with people and have a background in training and development. And it was through that that I discovered this niche that I enjoyed so much, which was tutoring peers and still older adults than myself and how to more effectively use their iPads and their iPhones and their watches and their Macs. And through the course of doing that, I had the aha moment that this has to be a viable and much needed business opportunity. So I started, as you can see here, Senior Tech Tutor Marin. And I started the business intentionally to be priced at a very reasonable price point that is very much below what others might charge because I want it to be very much accessible so folks can get help. And the natural question becomes, well, what kind of help do people need? And that's what the article began to address. It's not hard for you all to see because you've been involved with technology for so long that it wasn't so very long ago that technology was really rather optional. If you were going to take a drive and you weren't sure of your directions, you'd bring up MapQuest on your computer, you print out those directions, and you'd be on your way. Maybe you were using AOL Messenger. Some of you undoubtedly might have an AOL email address still. You were doing it for genealogy research. The primary goal of your usage of technology, one could argue, was enjoyment, and certainly for work, for those requirements at work that had computer related activities. But it certainly wasn't something you needed for basic daily living, but you do today. And that's what's happened over the course of the last, say, decade or so. You're not getting on an airplane generally with a paper boarding pass. Chances are better than not you've done that on your device. As soon as COVID came, we got up close and personal with QR codes for menus instead of regular menus. If you're trying to park in a downtown area, chances are you're going to need to use an app to be able to access the parking payment system. And if you want to do banking, I'd be curious to know how many of you actually still walk into the bank versus doing those activities online. And what's happened along with that access has come the complexities of keeping all those things safe. I thought it was interesting that Marcelino was talking about trying to get onto Zoom to be able to sign in, and he got tripped up by a two-factor authentication, which wasn't sent to the email that he thought it was going to be sent to. That's a perfect example of some of the hindrances and roadblocks that we're running into. We have multi-factor authentication, and we also have the need to use those things in environments seemingly as simple, or at least they once were, as signing on to your PG&E account or getting into your healthcare portal like MyChart. So I run into these clients with these challenges that they're facing. And what's really interesting to me and perhaps to you is there's this emotional reality of the whole situation. I really wish I had a buck for every time a client looked at me and sheepishly said, well, I'm just a tech dummy. And they're not tech dummies. These are folks that in no way could be qualified as anything other than super smart and accomplished individuals based upon their history as physicians and clergy, business owners. But now they've run into this situation that they feel very uncomfortable trying to master. And it's underscored by a very real feeling of, in some cases, genuine fear and certainly anxiety. I was working with a client just last week, and she had a beautiful iPhone 17, hadn't set up her voicemail, hadn't really set anything up meaningful on the phone. And when I asked her what was it that was kind of the roadblock to her getting more comfortable with the phone, her words were, and I quote, "This thing scares me." So she was genuinely frightened that there would be something uncomfortable that would happen. She would be permanently locked out. She would accidentally lose data. She would fall prey to a scam if she were to do the wrong thing on her iPhone. The other frustration that comes up is the issue of relearning fatigue. How many times have you gone on to your favorite program and or app and or website and the user interface has been switched around? What you knew to be the print button and where it was just isn't there anymore. What used to be the download button just isn't there anymore. The frustration of having to constantly relearn apps and websites is really frustrating for the clients that I deal with, whether it's the volunteer work or in the business. It's the same frustration. And it's born out of the fact that for years, decades, we did work, we followed processes that really didn't change that frequently, perhaps around the edges they did. But the core functionality of the programs that we use, I say programs in quotes, for our work, they pretty much stayed the same. And now you've got app updates that can throw us a curveball constantly. So we try to get over some of these humps. We try to reduce the fear. We try to help clients be able to see that they're not going to break their devices if they take what they think is a misstep. I'll give you another example. Client called me up because they had installed 1Password, and I applauded her. I was like, that's awesome. Because unfortunately, I cannot count the number of times where I either ask for a client to provide a password to say their Apple account so we can make an adjustment, or a sign in because they say they're having trouble with my chart. And I say, well, let's get in there and take a look at what the situation is. And immediately what they do is they pull out that binder and they start paging through the binder of passwords. This particular lady said, let me get my book out of my car. And this shiver went down my spine that her entire password history was inside of that binder and it was sitting in her car. Now, this is the same woman that wanted help with 1Password. So again, I applauded her for taking that step. But past the point of installing 1Password, she hadn't used it because it was presenting some roadblocks that she was uncomfortable tackling. And once we got it installed and began to use it, one of the things I get a lot of joy out of in working with my clients is the aha moments they have, kind of the little giggles they have when they see something that they otherwise didn't know was even capable. Something as simple as hitting Command Spacebar on a Mac and pulling up Spotlight Search, or using Shift Command 5 to take a screenshot, things that they hadn't really delved into. Many times I hear from clients that they have a Mac, but they almost never use it. So at the end of the day, what I want to be able to do is demystify so people can feel more comfortable with the concept of having a secure password habit, to be able to identify scams and phishing attempts, to be able to ward off those spam phone calls like the gentleman just mentioned, offering those low cost personal loans, and how you might be able to distract those away from your phone. And most importantly, to be asking questions freely without any embarrassment, and to get the kinds of help that they need that show folks how to come to operating their devices on their own. Because one of the things I also hear is, well, my kids are impatient, and or when my kids or my grandkids come to help me, what they do is they rip through the solutions quickly. I don't follow what the solution is. It's not replicable for me. And so I don't learn anything. They might have the problem solved or not, but they didn't actually benefit from the interaction in becoming a more proficient user of technology. So this all goes to say that circa 2026 and moving forward, of course, none of this becomes optional. If you want to be a fully participating, and I say that gently, member of society, to be able to do all the things that we want to be able to do in the most efficient, sometimes economical way possible, then we have to get better at using the devices that are available to us and using the applications that are built into those devices that frequently will make our lives much easier, much more comfortable, and in some cases allow us to maintain the independence that we all want to be able to have as we continue to move through our later years. So I think two of the buzzwords I want to leave you with are curiosity and persistence. That's one of the things I'm so delighted about, is that clients are ready, willing, and able to stay at it until they learn it. And they're deeply curious about how things work. And for that, it's my privilege to be able to work with folks to help them get better at Macs, Apple Watches, iPhones, and iPads.